I run an import-based business, and I've worked with Chinese suppliers for over 18 years, and when the Trump tariffs hit, everything changed. Suddenly, the products I relied on were over double the cost. My profit margins have been reduced. But here's the twist that most people miss. Chinese factories are hurting big time too. I've gotten emails from longtime suppliers desperate to cut deals, offloading equipment, and even shutting down production lines. They're not posturing for the media either. They're panicking worse than Americans behind the scenes. And all this got me thinking, what's the real game plan here? Because this doesn't feel like a short-term political theater anymore. It feels like a long-term economic chess match. So in this video, I'm breaking down the Trump tariffs from the ground level. You'll hear what it's actually like running a small business when your entire supply chain gets hit by policy warfare. I'll walk you through what's happening inside China, what American entrepreneurs like me are doing to survive, and why I believe this might just be the opening move in a much bigger strategy to decouple the world's two biggest economies. And just to be clear, this isn't about left versus right. It's about what happens when global politics crash into real-world business. And if you're an importer like I am, or just trying to make sense of what's coming next, you're going to want to stick around. Now for context, I've been running a business selling personalized wedding handkerchiefs for the last 18 years. We're a 7-figure company, and most of our products are textiles, items I simply can't source affordably or reliably here in the United States. We've built strong relationships with overseas suppliers, shipped over 1 million handkerchiefs worldwide, and because we do custom monogramming in-house, our margins are over 90%. So when we hear talk of 100% plus tariffs, yes, it hits, but it's not catastrophic. We'll still make a profit, just less of it, unless we pass the cost on to the consumer. But imagine this. Let's say you're a business that makes only a 50% margin, and you just spent $100,000 on products that are supposed to bring in $200,000 in revenue when sold. You've already paid $100,000 to your supplier, and it's all just sitting at the port right now. Now, you either have to pay an extra $100,000 in tariffs, or you lose the shipment. And if you do pay the extra $100,000, you're basically selling your products at break even. Now for most small businesses, this isn't just inconvenient, it's devastating. You can't just raise prices by 100% overnight. You can't absorb that kind of hit indefinitely. And the worst part, there was no warning. These tariff changes didn't roll out gradually, they hit in the span of a week. And this isn't just a hiccup, it's a gut punch. Right now, we actually have a partial container being manufactured in China. We've already paid 30% down to start production, but guess what? We're not paying the remaining 70% for now, and we're definitely not shipping it to our warehouse in the United States until things settle down. In the meantime, we're ramping up orders from our US, European, and Indian manufacturers to cover the gap. Now to be fair, we're in a better position than most. We started diversifying our suppliers back during the last Trump administration, so this isn't our first rodeo. But many of our friends and colleagues, they've been caught completely off guard. Many businesses in the US depend entirely on China, and almost all of them are hitting pause on new orders. Because let's be honest here, nobody wants to pay 100% tariffs. Nobody. And that's when it hit me. Maybe we're not the ones getting hit the hardest. Maybe it's the factories in China that are really feeling the pain. Now it all started with a couple of strange messages from my suppliers over there, and they didn't sound normal. Not the usual updates, not the typical delays. There was tension in their words, like they were scrambling, unsure, even desperate. One supplier said, "We would like you to place your order now. Things are not stable." Another message, "Please respond. Our machines are not running. We may not be able to continue." Now I've been importing from China for 18 years and I've never seen this level of desperation. Factories that used to quote 30-day lead times suddenly had inventory ready to ship the next week. Production lines that were booked solid are now begging for work. One even told me, "Many customers canceled after the tariff. We cannot survive like this." And that's when it hit me. This isn't just a hit to my margins. It is a full-blown crisis in China's manufacturing sector. Workers are being laid off. Equipment is being liquidated. Some of these factories won't make it through the year. And this is all over social media. The following videos were posted when the tariffs were only 30 to 50%. Now just imagine what it's like in China today with 100% plus tariffs. One Chinese TikToker who works as a bulk trade supplier shared in his video the huge pressure he's under after the sudden increase in US tariffs.
订单量5000多万美金今年。
Our orders are worth over $50 million US this year. We're already booked through May of 2026, but with this tariff hike, the impact on us is huge. If you're a small startup, it's not such a big deal because you don't ship enough to fill an entire container, but for us, it hits hard. Our profit margins in bulk trading are already razor thin. Now with this tariff, it's like getting knocked to the ground. He said the only thing he can do for now is wait. His backup plan is to ship through third-party warehouses in other countries. That's the only way forward. Meanwhile, in early April, another TikToker filmed a clothing factory that had just shut down and said, "The clothing industry is in serious trouble. All the machines in his factory are about to stop. This year is going to be incredibly tough." Now that same day, another TikToker posted a similar video. He said that as soon as the US swung its tariff hammer, the impact hit the apparel industry like a ton of bricks. His factory originally had orders scheduled through the end of July, but now over 6,000 down jackets have been put on hold, and the ready-to-ship products are piling up in the warehouse. Another TikToker showed the current situation at his factory. Because of the tariff hike, orders have been delayed or canceled. Now, his packaging and printing factory doesn't even have boxes to make, so all he can do now is clean the factory. On April 6th, the owner of a laser cutting factory, a woman running her own shop, posted a video warning that manufacturing in China is about to get even tougher. She said that she's planning on selling off her expensive equipment because she can't afford to keep it. Yes, you heard me right. I might have to sell the laser equipment I bought last April. I don't need to explain, you can probably guess why. The economic environment is bad and the trade war has already started. Soon, all manufacturing businesses, especially small ones, will face bankruptcy. This is not an exaggeration, it's the reality. Now my Chinese is a little bit rusty, but this same lady also warned that starting this month, manufacturing businesses across China are heading into an unprecedented winter. Bankruptcies will surge, layoffs and downsizing will become the norm, many factory owners will run out of cash and won't make it through. Meanwhile, banks, law firms, and courts will be overwhelmed with new cases. And this Chinese TikToker summed it up perfectly. Manufacturing business owners across China are in a state of anxiety, confusion, and helplessness, especially those who relied heavily on foreign trade. With shrinking overseas demand and declining domestic consumption, China is being squeezed from both sides. By the way, if you're interested in learning how to start your own profitable online store and learn where to source products amidst all the tariffs, make sure you sign up for my free 6-day e-commerce mini course below. It's 100% free and I guarantee you'll learn a lot. Now to be fair, my friends and colleagues in e-commerce are feeling the pressure too. These tariffs are brutal, especially for those who already have containers mid-transit across the ocean. They've already paid for their goods and there's no way to undo that. But from what I'm seeing, China might actually be getting hit even harder. Many Chinese factories have poured millions of dollars into production lines, machinery, automation, capacity upgrades, all geared towards fulfilling Western orders. And now, that equipment is just sitting there, gathering dust. On April 7th, a TikToker from Foshan visited a newly built factory district and recorded footage of the vacant and neglected factory buildings. He said, "Look at these factories that were just built last year. Now, I can't even find a single person. There are no cars or people on the road. Some of these factories are single-story and others have multiple floors. The landlords in China spent nearly $1 billion building out these factory complexes just a couple years ago. And back then, these spaces were in such high demand that you had to wait in line just to lease one, often through middlemen who snatched them up in bulk. But now, not a single customer is coming to view the properties. And the buildings behind me, they haven't even been renovated yet, because the landlords are too scared to invest any more money, knowing full well no one might ever rent them." With the manufacturing sector in sharp decline, it's not just one industry hurting, it's everything. Now I'll be honest with you guys, when I first heard about these tariffs, I was furious. I thought to myself, this is the dumbest policy I've ever seen. Why would you gut your own supply chain and spike inflation in the name of leverage? But maybe this says something about my personality, because anytime I see someone make a decision that seems reckless on the surface, especially someone with access to the smartest advisors in the world, I pause and I ask myself, what if I'm the dumb one? What if I'm missing something that they see? Because if this is just about tariffs, it's a complete mess. But if it's something bigger, if it's part of a deliberate long game, then maybe we're all looking at this the wrong way. So based on everything that I've been able to dig up online, here's the thesis I've pieced together, and let me know in the comments below if you agree or if you think I'm completely off base. This whole uproar started when Trump issued what seemed like a reckless wave of reciprocal tariffs. not just on adversaries, but on allies too, and it threw global markets into chaos. Businesses panicked. Economists called it suicidal, but here's what's interesting. The chaos actually did something profound. Despite all the outrage, most countries eventually came to the negotiating table. All but one. And as of this recording, China remains the only major power that hasn't budged. The only one still lobbying retaliatory tariffs instead of pursuing a new deal. Hypothetically, if the US manages to strike enough bilateral trade and currency agreements with other major countries, China ends up in a very uncomfortable position. The odd man out. Access to the world's largest consumer market gets cut off. Dollar access becomes more restricted, and those usual workarounds, like routing exports through third world countries, stops working if everyone else joins a new US-led system. And in that scenario, the US reasserts control over the global trade network. The dollar remains the undisputed reserve currency, and China begins to feel the pressure of real economic isolation. And maybe, just maybe, that's been the point all along. Maybe the tariffs were never about short-term wins. Maybe the chaos was always step one, a calculated move in a larger strategy to redraw the global order, with the ultimate goal of ensuring that the US decides who gets to thrive within it. Based on everything I'm seeing right now, this looks like one massive game of chicken. And yes, both the US and China are going to feel the pain. But here's the thing. I actually believe that the US is in a stronger position than China. According to Goldman Sachs, the proposed 125% tariffs on Chinese imports could shave off as much as 2.9 percentage points from China's GDP growth. In comparison, the projected impact on the US economy is smaller at around 1%. Now that's not nothing, but it's a gap that matters. And on the ground, I'm seeing it firsthand. Factories in China are hurting badly. Production floors are idle, equipment is collecting dust, and many of these manufacturers invested millions into scaling up for foreign demand that's suddenly vanished. Meanwhile, over here, yes, it's painful. Yes, sourcing is getting more expensive, but we have options. We can shift to suppliers in India, Mexico, Europe, and even the United States in some cases. China can't pivot nearly as easily. But here's the part that hits closer to home. Whether or not this grand strategy actually works, there's no denying that tariffs, especially across the board, have real consequences here in the US. Tariffs drive up the cost of imported goods, and that cost doesn't stay on a spreadsheet. It gets passed down to consumers and small businesses. If you're a small business owner who relies on overseas suppliers, your input costs just went up. If you're running on razor-thin margins, you're now faced with a brutal choice. Raise prices and risk losing customers, or absorb the costs and bleed cash. And even if you're not importing directly, inflation ripples through everything: packaging, shipping, equipment, even food. So while the politicians and economists talk about realigning the world order and weakening China, the people who feel the squeeze first are small businesses and working families, the backbone of the economy. This is the gamble. Short-term economic pain in exchange for long-term global leverage. But the question here is, how much pain can we take before the strategy backfires? Because if inflation spirals and small businesses can't survive the turbulence, then it won't matter who wins the trade war, we'll all be paying the price. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you watch this one here on how I shifted production from one of my product lines to a US factory.